Hello, everyone. Welcome to my thesis paper presentation for CED 595 in summer of 2019 on iPads in higher education and are they viable from a technological and pedagogical perspective. Had a great time putting together this paper as it's something that I had personal interest in for quite a while, working for Suffolk County Community College and wanting to integrate iPads into our technological environment for quite some time, but needed to put some backing up to the idea of why they were going to be beneficial. Is it going to benefit us from a technological perspective? Also, does it have pedagogical benefits? Are the educational outcomes worth it? Is it going to provide additional student success over our current PC environment? Or are they just going to be another piece of technology in the classroom with no clear direction? This is what I set out as my goal for this paper, and I feel like I achieved it. In the next few slides, I'm going to go over the key sections of my paper and indicate some findings that I found, and I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you. Institutions of higher education are consistently at the forefront of technological change. Mobile and handheld technologies offer flexibility in education, collaborative environments, and creativity. The iPad should become the standard choice for learning technology in higher education and fit into the overall vision and mission of the college. The iPad's overall appeal makes it easily accessible for students and affordable for higher education institutions. It contains an array of powerful creative software tools, interactive textbooks, ease of deployment, and a world-class collection of applications and content that make for endless learning opportunities. This was my thesis statement within my paper, and I feel that it summarizes my case very well as to why the iPads should become the standard mobile learning device in higher education. They fit into the overall vision and mission of college very well in that all colleges want to have the utmost in educational outcomes and always have increased student success. And I feel that this technology paves the way for that. It's in a study that was shown through some educational technologists. They said when given the choice to use an iPad or a laptop in class, 50% more students chose to use the iPad over the laptop. I mean, that's a pretty telling statistic as to if you want half your class would prefer to use the iPad over the existing mobile learning device of a laptop. Also, when you introduce this type of technology into higher education, since it's a new technological initiative, higher education institutions always have to carefully plan it based upon the budget, adoptions of the device, renewals of the device. This is all essential for a long-term multi-phase technological deployment. In one of the references that I was looking at, they mentioned a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you were to just get a bunch of iPads and not have a plan on how to integrate them into the curriculum, deploy them out to the students, manage them amongst the faculty in the classes, also providing development for your faculty so that they could successfully convert their curriculum from whatever technology device they're using over to the iPads, I mean, you're going to have a failed experiment. So you need to take all of this into consideration. Big section of the paper to start off was mobile devices and their influences on society. Goes into the history of mobile learning devices. Mobile learning devices started out, say, 15, 20 years ago when smart carts were introduced into the classroom. So they would just contain a regular PC with a projector. It was mobile. That then later on became laptops. So then we went into more of the world known as M-learning or mobile learning because the mobile devices, they allowed us to positively impact how education is delivered via conventional lecture-based classrooms and our educational systems were accustomed to. So that was revolutionary. Mobile devices had such an influence on society in general, just like education, where we're all on our mobile devices every day. Everybody has a smartphone for the most part. Now everybody's addicted to their smartphone for the most part. I'm on a laptop right now recording this presentation. It's allowed me to be mobile and put together my paper in a variety of different areas over the course of the summer. So, mobile learning, same way I've been able to move to different environments to put my paper together, it paved the way for synchronous and asynchronous learning modalities. So it's provided new ways for people to consume and absorb and create information. So it's became education in a very flexible and seamless manner where they could learn or create at any time in any place, which substantially enhances the overall learning experience. Over time, whereas the laptops were the premier mobile learning device, then came out with iPads, which came out in 2010, and also Google came out with their Chromebooks, which were a very inexpensive, low computing processor version of a laptop. A lot of K-12 institutions go towards the Chromebook route because of their low cost. Then they run on Google's Chrome OS. So it has a set of apps that you could find in Chrome web browsers, and they're manageable by the departments, and they integrate with Google Classroom. So those were always, those became kind of the de facto go-tos after laptops. And now the iPads, whereas when the iPads came out, they didn't have a clear direction as to how they fit into the educational classroom. But over the years, Apple has really sought out to become the industry leader in education opportunities via their devices, and has kind of really changed the game as far as, one, the pricing of their iPads, where they brought them down to be more competitive with the Chromebooks, through the introduction of Google Classroom for Apple Classroom for classroom management, Apple School Manager for deployment of devices into educational institutions, through their VPP, volume purchase program, for application purchases, through their DEP for device enrollment program for enrolling devices that are purchased. I mean, they're just trying to make it as easy as possible for higher education institutions, K-12 institutions, and IT administration in general to utilize their devices. So this is where the iPad is now becoming on the forefront, and it's emerging as a big player in the mobile device segment of education. JAMF, JAMF software is the largest Mac management software company in the world. I'm actually certified in JAMF management, and they manage currently 13 million Apple devices around the globe. They're huge. All the Fortune 100 companies use them. I think a few Fortune 50 companies use them. If you're not using JAMF, you're using the wrong program. So they surveyed over 350 education professionals who manage IT around the globe, and it said that the immense scope and scale of the iPad adoption is unprecedented right now. They said that 95% of their schools support iPads, while 36% of these professionals also support over 5,000 Apple devices in their environment. In one of the case studies that I reviewed for this paper of Maryville University, they provide a one-to-one iPad deployment to their students. They have 6,500 students as of this year. So that's 6,500 iPads they're managing and refreshing every year. I mean, just refreshing it for the new incoming students, but still 6,500. So there needs to be an active and easy way to seamlessly manage that environment, which Apple and some other third-party providers such as JAMF are providing for higher education.
I can't get the app.
Sorry, my Apple Watch decided to jump in on that one. Next is, why are iPads important to higher education? Mainly the benefits, the cost, familiarity, and perceptions. Let's go into the benefits. iPads, they have access to 75,000 educational apps, which are designed specifically for the iPad. The iPads are designed to be in what's called one-to-one environments, so one iPad for one student, or even now, iPads are designed for shared iPad environments where you can allow any number of students to use an iPad, but the iPads have the capability of storing up to 99 different users' information on that iPad. So if 99 people were to use the same iPad, their accounts were all stored on their iPad with their documents and data, aside from having to pull it down from iCloud, which I'll go into a bit later. Where, and some more of the benefits too, there was another case study that I looked at from the University of San Francisco, where 40 faculty members had iPads over the course of 6 months to implement into their classrooms and integrate them into their curriculum. And many of them found several distinct key advantages that were noted about these iPads and how they were devices which included an e-reader, the electronic textbook capabilities. They were able to annotate and note-take for meetings and classroom lessons. They allowed for multimedia viewing, interactivity, portability, design, and ease of use, access to all those educational apps I mentioned before, and also the speed of the device was never compromised. They found them as extremely effective learning devices in language learning, clinical settings, and also the sciences. They said that these were able to be used in the context of student advising, field work, research and tutorial viewing. The overall uses in higher education when it comes to this iPad seem to be endless, thanks to its mobility, flexibility, application collection, and accessibility features, which are able to foster the creativity, customized learning, while also boosting engagement and enthusiasm. That was some of the benefits listed that I found in a few articles regarding the iPad. And excuse me. And also another huge advantage for the iPads right now in higher education are the costs. The cost of the iPad used to be considerably high. It was more towards laptop cost, maybe a little bit less. And now the latest iPad has dropped its price down to around $300. And that makes it extremely competitively priced alongside its closest competitor, the Chromebook. Higher education institutions, they might opt for iPad Pros in certain areas, which have more storage or more internal storage. Those are obviously higher cost, but then again, somebody could opt for a better Chromebook. So it's kind of all the same. Having the cost of these devices at $300 makes them extremely more appealing than they once were because of the fact that they have a high resale value. So educational institutions of higher ed could resell them and recoup some of the costs. They could also sell them to the students. So in the one-to-one, they can maybe have the option to buy it once they get it, and it's their device for the duration of their term at the college, and then once they're done. Or maybe they could purchase a device upon graduation if they wish for a cost, and it would still be a perfectly capable device. It wouldn't be outdated. Also, when talking about the cost of $300 for an iPad, if I know at Suffolk, if we purchase desktop computers for, say, a computer lab, they're $800 per device. So now if I was spending $300, iPads would cost me 37% of that cost, where an entire computer lab would cost me $9,000 for iPads versus $24,000 for PCs. That would be for a count of 30. I mean, that's a significant difference because that's one classroom of 30 computers. If I talk about all the computers we have to manage on campus, that's 1,500 computers. So if we reduced it to iPads, there would be a significant cost savings. And another benefit of the iPads in higher education are that the market share of iPhones is 50% compared to Android devices. So with people being so familiar with the iPhone, and you got to consider at 50%, the iPhone is so much more money than the Android. If you're not talking about, Galaxy S10s, you're talking about a generic Android device. You can get those for a fraction of the cost of an iPhone. So the fact that there's a 50-50 split means that a lot of people are familiar with the iPhone. A lot of people like it and enjoy using it. So now bringing that same type of experience into the classroom through utilizing iPads creates a familiarity with both students and faculty and makes them a lot more comfortable to adopt a device in their learning environment, producing more positive educational outcomes and student success while learning because they don't need to overcome the hurdle of understanding the device. Sorry about that, I clicked the wrong button. Also, when it comes to familiarity, once the technological environment is familiar, it now creates a flexible, equivalent learning experience both inside and outside the classroom. So when they take these devices home or use their devices at their own house, which might be Apple devices, it creates a similar learning experience, extending the boundaries of the classroom, and their educational experience is only going to benefit even further from that. They actually found that I think a majority of higher education students, they tend to complete their assignments on a mobile device, so an iPad or an iPhone, a lot on their commutes to campus or just in general, like when they're on the go. So utilizing those same devices in the classroom is essential for providing an increased learning experience. Moving on to the pedagogical benefits. There's increased amount of educational outcomes and student success when it comes to integrating iPads into higher education institutions. In a 2016 case study at the Free State in South Africa amongst the Department of Computer Science and Informatics, they investigated using the iPads when engaging students in teaching and learning. And they found that student engagement was related to positive educational outcomes when utilizing the iPad. The iPad gave confidence and attention to the students' perception of the iPad mediated their learning, and in the process of improving their educational outcomes. Learning tends to occur when the students are actively engaged, and an increased degree of learning will yield positive educational outcomes. And utilizing the iPad as a catalyst for educational improvement is shown by the unprecedented adoption of the iPad in developed countries such as Canada and the US. In the United States, the iPad is being adopted at such a high rate in higher education institutions that it's really becoming the de facto standard, which it should be. People are seeing the positive effects that it can have on learning and education, and they're seeing the benefits it provides long term to their student success. There was a big case study by Jamf on Maryville University, which I mentioned earlier, about iPad deployments. Maryville decided to reinvent their entire informational technology offerings to students and going one-to-one with their iPads to every student. Mark Lombardi, who's the president of Maryville University, he said that, he goes, "We're going to be the leading disruptors in the space of higher education. We're leading a revolution, changing the entire model of higher ed for students. We're taking what's an old and antiquated way of providing higher education and making it vibrant and alive in the 21st century." He said that 87% of the students agreed that technology has been instrumental to their success at Maryville once they introduced this one-to-one iPad initiative. He said statistical outcomes of the program have also been telltale signs of the impact when integrating iPads. Traditional enrollment is almost up 20% the past 2 years since their iPad initiatives. I mean, this is tremendous in showing how the iPad can have an effect on student success of technology offerings. Also, two key pedagogical benefits are also collaboration and creativity when it comes to the iPad. Collaboration is linked to student success as it enhances academic achievement, student attitudes, and student retention. The use of iPads for content creation and abilities in the classroom aims at promoting collaboration and creativity, facilitating a learning environment which indirectly increases active learning and educational outcomes. So these two items that the iPad can provide with ease are two key features on producing better educational outcomes and more student success in the classroom. So why are we not putting those into higher education institutions? Through utilizing applications offered on the iPad, such as iCloud suite of applications, such as Apple Pages, Keynote, and Numbers, Office 365, Google Suite. We can increase the student collaboration environment. They can also collaborate through applications such as Skype, FaceTime, Google Hangouts, Messages, Flipgrid, Slack. find creativity in all those apps we mentioned before, the 75,000 educational apps. Apple said the iPad is designed for complete freedom of expression and freedom of movement. With amazing apps and advanced built-in technologies, iPad can be anything students want it to be and has the power to create anything students dream up. Yet it's so intuitive, they can immediately take an idea and run with it. The creativity aspects are endless when it comes to the iPad. Hey, sorry about that. There's little technical difficulties there. But I'm back with the last section of my paper, or last two sections, which technological benefits. There's a lot to cover here, but I'll just quickly summarize it for you. Whereas with the iPad, Apple's biggest offering with iOS in general is their App Store and their built-in apps. They have a tremendous amount of educational applications, as we mentioned. They actually, I think they said that in 2018, an event held in Chicago, that the App Store was up to 200,000 educational and reference applications. I mean, that's a huge number. They said in 2012 there was only 20,000. So it's been an incubator for educational applications and reference applications in general, and it's really increasing the resourcefulness and necessity of having an iPad in higher education. iTunes U is another feature of iOS that has really kind of taken off. The ability for the iPad to be in higher education. It provides for the way to integrate lesson planning and digital textbooks, volume purchase program of applications, creation of podcasts, sorted learning materials, ability to hand in homework assignments, grades, lesson grade books, and integration into other LMS type utilities such as Blackboard. It's really kind of facilitated an all-in-one needs of the faculty and instructors in higher education classrooms. Also kind of coupled with iBooks, Apple has a tremendous digital bookstore that of the equivalent of Amazon, where books can be purchased, books can be borrowed, books can also be deployed and distributed. So when a school wants to buy textbooks, they can distribute them to all their student devices onto the iPad. Also through Apple's iCloud and iWork suites. So iWork, which we mentioned before, was their set of document producing applications, so equivalent of Microsoft Office. iCloud is what the iPad can take advantage of for storage of all student data. Now, when you run a Apple School Manager instance, which allows you to manage iPads in higher education, iCloud accounts that you provision for students are 200 gigabytes worth of storage compared to your normal account, which is 5 gigabytes. So you get a tremendous amount more storage where the students can store all their application data, documents, and photos. So any data that they create on the iPad, such as anything from applications, email, messaging, it's all stored in their iCloud. So when they jump onto a new iPad device, all that is brought down instantly to the device and accessible by them. To them, it doesn't seem like they're using a different device. All the data is there just the way they left off in their other classroom. Thanks to the mobility of the iPad, it creates easy to use physical size and storage. Storage in higher education is often limited. So now, without having to have gigantic laptop carts, you can have storage carts for iPads, which can hold a lot more units, a lot less heat, and just overall just a lot less to worry about, and also a lot less to purchase. Laptop carts can get pretty expensive. So having a cart that can hold more iPads or storage lockers is a cost-effective solution. Then when it comes to the accessibility features of the iPad, you have voiceover, switch control, guided access. These all provide ways for learners with disabilities to have an equal learning experience on the iPad and not let any of their disabilities be a disadvantage to them. Also, there is augmentative and alternative communications. So those who need alternative communication means or devices are able to utilize the iPad to integrate with those. The iPad can connect wirelessly to specific sets of speech input devices, hearing aids. It really provides learning experience for all learners and doesn't allow anyone be disadvantaged due to a disability that they may suffer from. And lastly comes integration considerations. With any sort of technology integration, you need to consider the infrastructure, classroom design, content, support, devices. How are all of these going to be addressed? Your infrastructure needs to be able to handle the wireless bandwidth that these devices are going to place upon it. Do you have the management capabilities that you need via your servers? Also, is your classroom designed effectively to integrate these in? Most higher education institutions utilize AV solutions, which can already go over into an iPad environment, such as having a classroom projector and wireless connectivity. Also, what type of content are you going to be pushing around? You need to get all the apps that all your faculty need for the classroom. So you need to coordinate with them as to what applications they're going to need. You're going to need to distribute to the devices and make sure that the students have the resources that they need for an active and effective learning experience. Also, the support level for the technology. You're going to need to be able to support it efficiently and effectively. And thanks to technologies that Jamf provides, that type of support is easy to perform and maintain. And it's really not a headache for IT to do that. Also, more pedagogical integration considerations. How is the curriculum going to be affected? A lot of faculty already have their existing curriculum and the ways that they go about instructing. A lot of them don't want to change that, especially for a new technology device, which they feel might be replaced soon enough, because it seems like every technology device is. So how can you easily migrate their existing curriculum onto the iPad? How can you find existing applications which will help them do that and help them educate their students? These are all part of the considerations which need to take place. A lot of it's easy to do because of the applications that are available in the robust App Store. A lot are similar and or the same to the ones that are available on the PC. Then it comes professional development. If you're going to implement a iPad initiative into higher education, you're going to need to develop your faculty effectively through a series of professional development courses and training seminars. And this is going to have to be something that's ongoing, and they're going to be, have to talk to one another and help support each other in this initiative. But most importantly, you need to make them feel comfortable with this change, because the overall anxiety of introducing a new technology device into the classroom can be a major stress factor for any instructor. So easing the transition is essential for a positive integration. And then the supporting technologies of iPads, which are Apple School Manager and Jamf. Apple School Manager is essential, and so is Jamf for the integration of iPads into higher education. They will in turn help provide these educational outcomes and student success that we're looking for, because with Apple School Manager, you can perform zero-touch deployments of your iPad. So once you purchase an iPad from Apple, it'll come in the box. You give it to the student takes it out, connects it to Wi-Fi, and the iPad will set itself up entirely as the higher education institution planned for. It'll load all the student's data, it'll load all the applications the student needs, customize the interface exactly as the policies state to do for that iPad. It's a zero-touch, IT never has to touch this device type of provisioning and enrollment. Zero-touch enrollments are something that's available on the iPad, which no other devices have right now. When talking about the Chromebook world or the Microsoft world, Microsoft is starting to, but it's not at the current level that Apple devices are. And for this ease of deployment and management, for that alone makes it for IT the most viable choice, period, for higher education institutions. And moving on to the conclusion, basically the iPad promotes active engagement among students and their peers, increasing the degree of learning and providing increased motivation in the pursuit of learning. The iPad has become the educational device for all. Adoption into classrooms of higher education should no longer be a consideration, but be the standard. Overall, the iPad isn't just a new technological fad. It's an effective learning device in which all higher education institutions should make a serious push into migrating their environments over from the existing technologies that they're utilizing to iPads. And thank you for listening to my presentation. If any of you can get a chance to read my paper, I'm sure you'll find a lot of useful information in that and find it as a enjoyable read. All right. Thank you. Have a nice summer.